Hi, welcome to the Rosenfeld Review. I'm Lou Rosenfeld, your host, and I'm joined by Rusha Sopariwala. Hi, Rusha. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to have you on the show. I am really interested in the topic you're covering, and everyone is interested in the topic you're covering. I know you're going to get into it in more depth at the Design at Scale conference in June, but a taste of it today. The name of your talk at the conference is Remote Together: Craft and Collaboration Across Disciplines, Borders, Time Zones, and a Design Org of 170 plus people. Uh, Rusha is a senior manager of product design at Wayfair. You got this organization that's growing really quickly. You got this team that's growing really quickly. You've been at this for a couple of years at Wayfair,
That's right.
fully remote the whole time, and your team's been fully remote the whole time. And I don't know if we've reached this moment of we've all figured it out. We've all figured
No,
out remote, but I know you've probably been figuring a lot of things out over these past couple years. Well, why don't we go back to where it started? And you're there a couple of years ago. You've been in the design field for some time, 15, 20 years now, I think. But
sure.
but
Yes.
suddenly you're in this large organization
hmm
hit by a pandemic, remote hire, growing a remote team, trying to scale it up. Where did you begin? And did you, start taking a step and immediately trip and fall on your face, or was it a little more elegant than that?
It was kind of in between, I would say. So I am that part of that growth that Wayfair is experiencing, and it's growing massively. And we've all experienced a lot of changes in the last 2 years, personally and at work. So this complete remote was new to me. I've always been an in-person, going to the office kind of person. I've worked with teams that were not co-located, but we're still like, a large group of us going into the office all the time. So it's the beginning of the pandemic. We're pretty unsure like what's where, and the anxiety levels are really high. And then you join a new organization, a new team. How do you make connection? What is it that you learn? What is, how do you kind of like make that engagement so you feel part of that culture? And so there were some angels that were on my team that really helped me out. And then from there, the leadership team at Wayfair took a deeper look as well. And like, how do we try to make those connections that were earlier organic, but now we need to kind of not force them in, but like think about them, be more intentional without overwhelming, you're constantly on your videos and have Zooms on. So there were some learnings, there were some ups and downs, things that didn't work out, cadence, time length, how often do you feel like you're stretched or not?
Well,
But yeah,
what's the all right, I'm gonna put you on the spot, and you can tell me to go drop dead, but if there was one mistake that you wish you could have back, that you're willing to share here, at least in public, what would it have been?
um, one mistake. So let me think. At the beginning, I mean, me including with my team, as I was starting to like understand the charters and the responsibilities and how I can be impactful to where my team is trying to head, was we were trying to experience or trying to recreate the experience that we had in office. So do a lot more like happy hours and like be on Zoom and come, everyone's coming together, do virtual lunches a lot more. And that quickly led to some exhaustion in terms of not getting enough time to have those deep thinking. So we as teams and as larger orgs recognized that and started to put more focus time on calendars. So you were not stretched from like, oh, I can start a meeting at 8 a.m. because I don't have travel time. Um, to like, going much later because I don't have boundaries. So we started to put much more focus times. And I think that's where we kind of like cut back on things that were supposed to be fun, but they were not adding more value. But
Yeah, it's like
making you feel.
I imagine like people have to kind of try harder to have that fun, and at some point there's a level of exhaustion. Did you conversely find that there was some just, fantastic successes right out of the gate that you hadn't anticipated? Things that worked really well?
Um, I think one of the things that has worked well at Wayfair, I feel like, especially from the design leadership, is having a cadence of like how we connect, and what is a particular connection for. So at when we experience growth at all levels, from individual, like the teams, the designers are embedded in a kind of scrum teams, to like what does a larger global design organization look like when you have your design peers in Toronto and Austin, in Berlin, is kind of like have taking a step back to think about, what time is it in Berlin? If we put this time now at 2 p.m., it's pretty late for them. You can't. So being more mindful about when we have those connection times and keeping it open. You can bring your lunch or breakfast or dinner, together. So you're being much more mindful about time zones and how people would want to connect. My immediate team loves connecting and will put on our Google Meet and like do the work that we need to do, but like create that in-person environment, but it does not work for every team. So each individual teams and levels started to figure that out, like what works.
And so it sounds like there was almost a sort of egalitarianism in place that may not have been. So you're based in Boston, right? That's where HQ
I
is.
am, yeah.
And suddenly maybe there's more sensitivity to the people in Berlin and the people in California and so on. Was that more than there had been before you went all the
Absolutely, 100%, absolutely. I, took, and everyone, like, we took advantage of the tools that we have in Google Calendar. You start to see you can put like secondary time zones, and you can put like other time zones in as well. So I always have that open. So when I'm even putting some time on someone's calendar, I'm mindful of like, where does it fall and what mindset they might be in. So being more sensitive, being more inclusive, and then giving kind of option of like, you don't have to be on camera, you can be optional, we'll record the meeting. So being just kind of aware of that kind of brings down that exhaustion and that pressure that we need to be on all the time.
So, did you find that sensitivity that led to more inclusiveness and maybe a bit more, at least geographic egalitarianism, opened up any new opportunities or benefits? Did you find, for example, that people in some of the remote locations who might have been quiet in the past suddenly stepped up in new ways because they were included more than in the past?
I think, I mean, one thing which has well worked for or has worked in the last 2 years is remote employees are not secondary. Like, designers are able to kind of participate in workshops or conduct workshops that are not in person, right? So you don't have to be, if 5 people are in person doing sticky note moving, and then somebody's kind of dialing in, will not have the same amount of engagement. So with this, I think we all quickly learned like how do we make this participation with our stakeholders much more engaging, because now everyone's in the same platform, and then utilizing, if you're not comfortable talking, you have the type option, and those taking a moment during meetings to pause and say what comments have come in,
Mhm.
so that it really kind of level feels, um, you know across how you want to participate and engage.
Well, it sounds more inclusive, but as someone, let's say in his late 50s, I know that some of the tools that are common probably for younger people in terms of the remote stack, let's say digital canvas tools, may be harder for me to be comfortable with than younger people. Did you find that there was any kind of friction for, let's say based on age or some other aspects that, people were just not able to get into the remote platform and get as much out of it as others? Does that create some sort of imbalance?
I'm not sure if I personally recognize that. I think we put in trainings to kind of have like, if you don't have access to some of these online collaboration tool, how can we spend the first 10 minutes in the meeting to kind of just give you a quick overview of how it works, and then let's get into it. And then we can always pause and take questions on how it works, so that
Hmm.
um, so the main content of like what we're trying to get into that agenda and that meeting is met. um, but I mean, I think I'm sure it's been 2 years, but at the beginning it was challenging. Like, how do you run a 25-person facilitate a workshop when you can't see everyone? You off camera, read those body languages. But I think we're getting much more used to that.
Early on, I mean, like part of the tooling or retooling for all remote may have included or needed to include people in dedicated facilitation roles, I would imagine. I've seen that with other organizations. Did you find that suddenly there was pressure on people to be able to facilitate remote meetings in ways they hadn't before, or they didn't have the skills, you needed to train them? Did you have dedicated facilitators for these larger meetings?
I think what we had was a really good group of support designers, right? So if I know I'm facilitating next week, it's coming up, I'll reach out to my peers, my design group, and ask, like, what is best thing that you've done that has helped you? So
Hmm.
learning from each other, that has best kind of like, and that's how I kind of open to reaching out, and so is everyone. So I think with our global design community, we've created this space where we are able to kind of ask for help and say, if you have the time for an hour, would you be able to come in and sit in and then help me if I stumble upon to like take over, or like, kind of pause and help me. So I think that is something that, I'm looking forward to sharing during the conference, as well as, things that we've tried and failed and are still evolving, of where Wayfair is at.
Oh, that gives me a good segue to remind listeners that Rusha is one of the speakers at Design at Scale virtual conference taking place June 8th through 10th. So it's coming up next month. We can't wait for you to be there and learn from people like Rusha. Rusha, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment. You're listening to the Rosenfeld Review. Hey, it's Lou, and I want to put in a plug for a very special experience that Rosenfeld Media is putting on. It's the Design at Scale 2022 conference. It's taking place June 8th through 10th, and it will be 100% virtual. Why are we doing this conference? Well, first of all, it's the latest edition of a conference that's taken a lot of different shapes over the last 7 or so years. It was the Enterprise UX conference for a while, then it was Enterprise Experience, and the last couple of years, Design at Scale. This year in particular, we are looking back at the last couple fun years we've all been having, taking the lessons, looking at some of the challenges, pulling together and distilling what we've learned, and using what those lessons are to help map a path forward. So look at this conference in a way, if you work in a large organization as a designer or researcher, what have you, as an opportunity to reflect and then pivot and take what we are covering in these 3 days and arm yourself to move forward. That's what Design at Scale is going to be about. If you want to know the themes, the first one, we have a whole day on this, is design practices in times of crisis. The second day is all dedicated to design processes for a new normal. And the third day, the third theme, is design people caring for individuals and teams. If this sounds up your alley, come to the website, designatscale.co. Check out the program. I think you'll be impressed. And again, We do virtual really well. I think you'll enjoy the experience. I hope we'll see you June 8th through 10th at Design at Scale 2022. Welcome back to the Rosenfeld Review. I'm Lou Rosenfeld, joined by my guest, Rusha Sopariwala, Senior Manager, Product Design at Wayfair. And we are talking about how designers can work together remotely successfully, because that's what Rusha's been working on at Wayfair. Let's talk about the design aspects, Rusha. What's been working? What's been challenging? What are you learning?
Yes, so at on a global design scale level, we are at Wayfair. We are over 180 now designers that are across, serving different users. So from on the marketplace, on the customer side, partners, and then internal talent, field champions, number of different users, and then across geographies. We have tech um, tech spaces in Toronto, Austin, California, and Berlin, and UK, and a lot of like different remote as new members join in. We are much more diverse geographically placed. And so how do we all, regardless of who we serve, kind of come together to support? I think has been a big kind of intentional investment from Wayfair and from design leaders is, what are those rituals and ceremonies do we put in place that will help us connect, kind of enhance the craft, make design more visible, support each other in the space you're in, and then all through doing virtually. So one of the big things that we do is we have this random coffee chats. There is a bot that connects, puts two people together, and you have 2 weeks. You reach out and learn, and there are some really great kind of understanding or dot connections have come together. I particularly had this epiphany of, connected with a researcher who was doing research on how customers think about quality when buying things online at Wayfair. How do they think about quality? I'm like, this is great because I work on the supplier side, and this would be a great learning for us to say, these are the things that the customers are looking for to kind of like understand quality. And can we make much more of a better kind of connection there? So there are coffee chats, and there are also like kind of mentorship programs were in place to kind of help each other support and also level up.
So something like the coffee chat, I understand that you have the random assignment of pairs of people. That makes perfect sense. Do you also have to combine those assignments with any kind of prompt in order to get those kinds of insights like the one you just described around quality?
No, we don't. I mean, some of the coffee chats, we realize that, wow, we live like 5 doors from each other in the same neighborhood. And some coffee chats, you learn about like different things. So it is very open. It's up to the people. And sometimes, the bot connects us again. We're like, oh, we spoke about like 4 months ago. Like, hey, how's it going now? You were working on this project. So it's very open, and you don't have to. Some weeks I'm busy and I'm not able to do that. And that's totally okay. There's no pressure.
Do you have an expectation or that you communicate about, keep this more professional, keep it personal? Doesn't really matter.
There are no guidelines. It's up to the connection. I think that is the beauty. Otherwise, you're kind of, again, it like leads to that exhaustion if you were under there were certain circumstances.
So that's really open. That's the kind of ritual that's really open. You also mentioned things that are a little bit more specific, like mentoring. Are you seeing ideas for new ways of connecting people in your organization remotely that emerge from the more open-ended discussions that they're having at coffee? Like, did mentoring as an idea come from the coffee chats? Are other ideas coming from the coffee
Right.
chats?
Yeah. I think one of the things that Wayfair has are a number of different collectives. So you as a design practitioner can be part of a Figma collective and then get more deeper into that. Or I'm part of like the DEI collective where we think about like, how do we enhance and like, kind of make our DEI practices more visible. So those sometimes get formalized into like, so mentorship was one of them. What we also do is like we have show and tells every 2 week, and which is much more formal, where I'm kind of talking about, okay, this is the thing that we are working on this week. My team is doing this, and everyone's kind of showing work in progress work, like unbaked ideas or things that wherever you are at that point of show and tell, which also leads to like great kind of dot connections across, like, oh, there's another side of this project, which is like much later down in the line, like how do we make a much more of a better end user experience. So those are formalized. A lot of them are kind of very open to collaboration on how we want to take it.
I love those dotted line connections because they are the way you start tearing down the silos. Um, are you, in your role as a leader in this organization, do you find yourself almost being in the role of like an editor in chief where you are responsible for programming? Like you're the one, for example, who is saying, show and tell this week is going to be about X, and these two people are going to lead it, and next week it's going to be about Y, or is it a bit more open than that?
It's much more open to that, and it's also a very collective thing. So we sign up. Every designer at every level gets a chance to like sign up and be the host for that show and tell, and everyone's on that domain, the designer that's working on, and in whatever capacity, or like how where that project is, whether it's in the exploration phase or it's in the discovery phase, will gets a chance to present from their perspective. So which also like leads to kind of practicing presentation, talking to like much larger group, and then it's a collective effort. So it's much less kind of programming.
Sounds almost like a rolling on conference. You're just setting it up. You're setting up the platform basically, and people know what to do once that platform is in place. What other rituals are you finding have had a real impact?
So well, it's not of a ritual, but like it came about, and like how do we think about coming together and enhance our craft. And there are a couple of the initiative that's going on, which is one is a UI GXD UI growth collective that helps designers kind of get more collaboratively gonna get feedback on their on UI, and it's at different levels, different designers that serve different users, and then again across time zones. So finding that sweet spot where everyone be able to kind of like come in. The other one we have is a research empowerment program to like make research much more demystifying it, and
Hmm.
also like there's a word that I can't.
Democratizing it?
Exactly that word.
All the good
I
D
always have
words.
trouble saying it. Where it's a 12-week program, and the research, the UXR group really empowers PMs and designers in their space to kind of like think about how they can run a successful research studies and the different types, and like what goes into it, and how they can be much more of a partner to the researchers in kind of able to help study. So I think some of those really help bring not only the craft level up, but then also connect. You hear and you kind of work with different PMs and designers and tech engineering leaders that are not always in your space, and I think it's a lot of fun. Like you find some really great common grounds where you form friendships.
What about other people outside the organization? Do you find you bring in guests to speak, to facilitate?
Absolutely. So we hold this space every year for a 2 day. We call it the GXT Connect, so Global Experience Design Team Connect. And the Global Experience Design Team is the content strategists, our UXR, and product designers together. And we have on certain topics we have guests come in and talk about, could be collaboration, it could be like, how do you kind of mentor and help level up, and hear from each other as well, like give chances internally for people to kind of showcase their passions. We did this really cool thing where in Figma we had these player cards, and everyone put in, there was a template, and then we put in like, things that they were passionate about, or if they were not a designer, what else would they be. It was such a great way to kind of like learn about other aspects and people as whole, because those are some of the things that you miss when you're not in the same space together.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like such an interesting programming and really curation exercise to be in a role like yours in a remote organization like Wayfair. It's exciting. I do have one more question though, and I wonder if this is really all that valid. Um, you have how many different locations where your remote team are
Oh
located?
gosh, so there are 4 tech centers, but then remote location, I mean, everywhere.
So, and it's quite international.
It is very international.
So, my question is, do you see a lot of cultural differences that ever present themselves when people are able to sort of have a level playing field in terms of remotely being based remotely, being equal members, not like being secondary citizens because they're remote, like they may have been in the past, but they're more, you know, there's a bit more equity, but also that might mean there's less of a dominant culture. And then, related to that, sometimes, design has its own culture that kind of trumps the local cultures. How does that all
Right.
play out for you at Wayfair?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it right. I think the design culture is probably the more dominant culture, like everyone's, in it together, working to how do we, make it better? Like, how do we make sure that we are, in a way, supporting each other? The local culture, I feel like, is much at a much um, I don't know if you call it silent, but like at a secondary level, it probably shows up a little bit more on intimate one-on-ones rather than at a larger scale that design operates in. But I think we're all trying to be sensitive, and I think that's sensitivity and inclusion is, I feel like, our best way to kind of make sure that each person, no matter where they are based, has equal voice
Hmm.
in what they're participating in.
So, I mean, there's some shared values in place, and they're important ones that help people work together. And it sounds like that has been pretty effective at countering any potential cultural friction. Well, that's
Yeah.
exciting to hear. We can certainly go on more, but you will be talking more about it at Design at Scale. Again, folks, we do a great job with virtual conferences, so you should be there June 8th through 10th. And Rusha is going to be a big part of that conference. Rusha, before we wrap up, in Rosenfeld Review tradition, we want to know what you've been reading or who you've been following that you think our audience should know about to shine a little sunlight on them. What's up?
Yeah. Yeah, great. So there are 2 things. Actually, I wanted to give a shout out to my team at Wayfair who's been supporting me throughout with this talk and putting this amazing programming together as well, and you giving me a platform to talk. And then as a gift, I've been pretty hooked onto Hidden Brain by Shankar Vedanta. It's a podcast. I'm not a big podcast person, but there are a couple that I follow. And the one thing that I love about his style of storytelling that makes science very digestible. And it's so relevant to us designers who are working in human-centered design, is to understand the human brain and just how complex it is. It constantly humbles me because not everything that you design is the user is going to behave that way, and just understanding and getting that deeper knowledge is phenomenal. My friend Deepthi Cole hooked me onto it, and I'm in it all the time.
Yeah, Hidden Brain is wonderful. He really does a great job of popularizing some deep scientific concepts, but he does it in such a gentle way. So I'll plus one that. Rusha, thank you so much. It's great to have you on the podcast. I'm really looking forward to your talk at Design at Scale. Rusha Sopariwala, product design senior manager at Wayfair. Thanks again for joining us today, the Rosenfeld Review.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Rosenfeld Review, brought to you by Rosenfeld Media. If you like our show, please subscribe and review it on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast platform. I'd love it if you tell a friend to have a listen, and check out our website for over 100 podcasts with other interesting people. You'll find them all at rosenfeldreview.com.